This is a Stock Trading Reality Podcast, episode 87.
Everybody needs to find their own trading style, and it's one game played hundreds of different ways, thousands of different ways.
This is the Stock Trading Reality Podcast, where you get to see the realistic side of a trader's journey. Get inspired and stay motivated by everyday normal people who are currently on their journey to trading success. And this is your host. He wishes he lived close by a Brazilian steakhouse. So good. Clay Trader.
So I'm not even really going to comment other than bringing our esteemed co-host Ches into the mix here and just ask Ches, do you like steak and just meat in general?
I do. I love it.
Have you ever been to a Brazilian steakhouse?
It's funny you mentioned that. No, I haven't, but it's been on my list. We always say we're going to go to do it, and it's like everyone says if you love meat, it's like meat heaven. So I've never actually been to one, which I'm now ashamed of. I'm going to have to put that on my list to do this year.
We should just probably end this right now, and if you're good at co-hosting, please. And this is why, Ches. This is what really is irritating me. You're from Chicago. Chicago has multiple Brazilian steakhouses, and yet you've never been to one. You're in Southern California right now. They have multiple Brazilian steakhouses, and you've never been there.
I want to counter this though. At one point, let
me finish, and then you may counter. You may offer your rebuttal. We may not get to our guests because this could turn into a 2-hour-long debate on Brazil. Anyways, for me, being in Grand Rapids, the closest Brazilian steakhouse that I have that I'm aware of. So for you listeners, if there is a Brazilian steakhouse in like West Michigan that I don't know about, please let me know. And I'm being serious. But as far as I know, I have to drive 3.5 hours to Chicago to go to these Brazilian steakhouses. And so it's a travesty that you have never been to one. I'm a little perturbed right now, but you may offer your rebuttal.
My rebuttal is that we actually have a butcher shop in the city that's next door. And the butcher shop actually has like a restaurant that's kind of attached to it. It's very, very small. There's maybe like 5 or 6 tables there. So we do go to a butcher shop where the meats are super, super good. And, it costs a little bit of money. But, Kelly and I go there actually probably about once a month, maybe once every other month. So that's the closest thing to a Brazilian steakhouse. By no means does it replace a Brazilian steakhouse. But you're right. I used to walk past one every day when I was in Chicago, and I just never went.
I'm not even kidding right now. That honestly irritates me because I literally have to drive 3.5 hours to do that and use. All right, screw this. We're moving on. So today we have a fantastic interview. Again, submit your resumes if you're good at co-hosting. I will gladly read over them. But in all seriousness, although but we're talking with Mark Raison today. He goes by that alias in the chat room. And as we talk about, he doesn't really talk that much, but that brings up a lot of good talking points. And he's a Canadian. I didn't even know he was a Canadian until like halfway through the interview. So, God bless Canada. We have ourselves another friendly northerner here with us, and it was a great interview. We talk about some good things. He brings up some fantastic points, and he makes some short statements, but these are short statements that really summarize a lot of important things for us as traders. So I'm totally confident that there's going to be some good nuggets of wisdom. So let's get started with Mark. Mark, hey, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
We had a little technical difficulties, but we all strived, we were all persevered, and we made it. So here we are. And like I said at the intro, Mark Raison is what he goes by in the chat room. And we really don't know much about you. You have been around. How long have you been around? Because I feel like it's been a while.
It really hasn't been too long, actually. Probably signed up maybe 3 months ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm not very active on there. I just kind of say good morning, and that's about it.
Yeah, and that's why I brought up that we don't really know much because you kind of just show up, I'm assuming, for the alerts. You make alerts and all that good stuff. So it's not like we've really talked that much ever in the trading lounge, which for you listeners is just one of the chat rooms where people kind of just kick back and have water cooler talk. But I thought you were around a lot longer than that. So fantastic. You've been here 3 months. So this will be good. But Ches, we literally don't know anything about Mark, do we? Other than
we do not, and that's how we like to go into these. It usually makes for a great story.
Yeah. So, but I mean, in some cases, we at least have talked with people before. But and Mark, real quick, a shout out to you. Thank you for just agreeing to do this. For some people, it's like pulling teeth. But I asked Mark, and he was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll do that." So hey, thank you publicly for being cool about it and not making a scene of it.
Yeah, not a problem.
All right, so you have listened to past ones, so you kind of know where we're going to start things off, but what exactly got you started in the markets? What kind of piqued your interest? And then what, kind of eventually said, I'm gonna take things serious and I'm gonna put some money on the line.
Yeah, well, I've always been a bit of a risk taker. I did some motorcycle racing a few years back. So I'm always an adrenaline junkie kind of thing. It's kind of gotten me into some trouble sometimes, though, in some of my trading. I've learned really not to chase the adrenaline and be bored. But I've always been interested in the markets. What got me interested originally was I wanted to make money.
Now, did obviously a lot of people come into the market, including myself, the same way. But I can already see Clay over there thinking about.
I'm jotting down a
junkie.
note. He said a good quote. Yeah. So we'll revisit something. You're right, Ches. I'm writing down a note.
But yeah, how being an adrenaline junkie can definitely kind of impact your trading. And like you said, pretty much the least exciting and the bored you are, generally the better trades you make. So when you say it kind of gets you in trouble, let's start off by like when you first started trading. What were you doing at the time? Did you just kind of Google, how to start day trading? What even got you in the market?
Yeah, well, basically, I always wanted to get into the market, but I never knew how. And what it was is there's an institution all over the world. I don't know if I don't really feel like plugging them, but they do like half day kind of orientations, kind of like a sales promo kind of stuff for them. So I went in, I sat in, and I learned some stuff about the market from there and how to get into it. But I didn't feel like forking up a few $1,000s to take their training courses and
only to have to fork up another $1,000 as I continue to upsell you. Yes,
exactly.
I'm well aware of that business model. Upsell after upsell after upsell.
And I knew that's exactly what they were doing. So that was probably a couple years before I actually started trading. Just because I never knew where to start. I knew I didn't want to start there until one day I just opened an account with a broker up in Canada here and put money in.
Oh, you're a Canadian?
I am a Canadian.
Well, here we. Oh, Canada.
That just changes the whole landscape here.
It does. I thought I heard some beavers and some Monties and elk in the background, but I wasn't quite sure. So
yeah. I think I'm the only one on the West Coast here from the chat. I know, is it Hooch is from the East Coast?
Yeah, most other Canadian members we have are all on the eastern side of Canada.
So are you in Vancouver?
I'm in Vancouver, that's right.
Penny stock capital of the world.
Is it?
Oh, yeah, there's so much penny stock stuff that goes on there. Anyways, that is a whole nother conversation. But anyways, we totally cut you off when I don't even know what you're saying.
I think
you're like the fourth Canadian on the show, so this is fantastic. I love our friendly neighbors to the north, don't you know? But so you took a class, but that was 2 days, but wow. 2 years before you ever got into trading. And then, you opened up an account up in Canada. What brokerage account was this, and how did you even hear about these people?
This is just a friend of mine was using the same brokerage to do a little bit of trading on by himself. But it was he would just want to put some money into these little stocks and kind of wait it out and see what would happen. So I learned about the broker from him, and I've been using the
name of the broker.
It's Questrade. It's only Canadian,
Questrade.
I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I've been using that ever since. It's okay. I'm comfortable with the platform and whatnot and interface, so it works for me. And I just basically put money in, and I started trading blindly up on the TSX and the Toronto Stock Exchange. And I started with mostly just banks, like names that I knew, like there's like the Royal Bank of Canada and whatnot. And learned that those don't really move. So, I was trading on margin, and I was trading with like $50,000 for a day, and I'd make like $30, and I was okay with that because that's all I knew. And then over time, I learned to get into the American markets, and I learned about like stock twits, and there's a lot more out there of research to do on the American market. So I basically put all my money into the American market and started there.
And you were able to do all that through Questrade?
That's right. Yeah, they can.
Okay.
I can put all my money into American funds if I need to and whatnot.
Okay, because I know we have Canadians that do listen, so brokers are always a hot topic. So it sounds like Quest Trade, it's okay of a broker, but it gets the job done. Is that kind of a fair assessment of kind of your viewpoint of them?
Yeah, I did a couple reviews on a couple of them. Like I said, I've only used Questrade, but I know Interactive Brokers is another big one. I tried their demo account, but I didn't like their interface, so I've stuck with Questrade.
Ches, I know you've used Interactive Brokers, right, Ches?
I have, yeah, and I highly recommend them. And Hooch is actually coming off of using, not sure if I should call him this, but he calls them Quest Hard, and he completely loves Interactive Brokers a lot more. But yes, they are friendly to our neighbors to the north.
But that's a good example of a personal preference, even within brokers. I mean, if you're a long-time listener of the show, you know that we're always talking about personal risk preference. And here he is, Mark, Interactive Brokers, not really feeling it, but Hooch, on the other hand, loves it, and he's not really feeling Quest Trade. So it really just goes to show that there's personal preference in all different facets of the market. So there's really, truly no right or wrong way to necessarily take on the markets, outside of, some key overall concepts. So you mentioned, I want to go back to your friend. So your friend was just, what was his trading model? Just throwing money at a bunch of like penny stocks and then crossing his fingers and hope mean what? Because it sounds like this was kind of your first actual interaction with, somebody that you could kind of quote unquote talk stocks with. So what exactly was his trading strategy?
Yeah, he wasn't much of a trader. I would call him more of an investor. He just used Questrade as the tunnel, or as the avenue to put money in the market. But he would put money into a couple of stocks here and there and hold them for a couple of years in hopes that they would go up. I didn't talk to him too much about what he invested in and whatnot. So I know like I said, he wasn't very active. So not like I am.
So now you hear about your friend doing this. Did he kind of, like you said, you didn't talk to him too much, but did he kind of mention that, some of his trades have made, a lot of money over a long period of time, or, what was kind of the process for that?
Yeah, most of his trades were basically a net zero thing after many years. Some of them worked, some of them didn't, and whatnot. So it was pretty much, he put next to nothing in the market.
So he was just pretty much just dipping his toe in a very slow fashion, in the sense of, he wasn't making tons of money, but he wasn't losing tons of money either. He was just kind of, testing out the waters. So
exactly.
Okay. So now you put money in your Quest Trade account, and then you just start, with the Canadian stocks. All right, that's not really working out. Then you move over to the American stocks, and then you mentioned, there's just so much more to research in regards to the American market. What exactly did you mean by that?
Yeah, there's just more. There's more, just chat rooms, and there's more YouTube. Everything on YouTube's about the American market. There's more sites, like FinViz and StockTwits. It's all about the American market and all the research that you do. And there's Benzinga has articles, and it's all about the American market. So a lot of the research, it's really easy to research the American market.
Okay, so not necessarily that you have to research more. You're just saying that researching is much more abundant out there because it seems as though everybody is talking about it. So that makes sense. I can totally see why that would make kind of life a little bit easier. I mean, I guess I'm just totally an ignorant American, but do the Canadian stock exchanges, do they even get that much volume, or is it really kind of spotty? Or, I mean, is it close at all to the American markets, or the American markets in terms of, volume just really blow it away?
I don't really trade a ton of Canadian right now, but as far as
when you did.
Yeah, there wasn't much available. There's so much more on the NASDAQ or the New York and stuff. So
okay, so you are now funds in your Quest Trade account, American dollars, ready to trade the American markets. So what was your strategy at this point in time? How are you going to develop trade ideas for yourself? What was kind of the method to your madness at this point?
No, I had nothing. I didn't want to do any training. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to give someone else my money because you hear about all these people who do the trading schools and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that I love, or what got me interested in you, is when I found you I originally found you on YouTube, and you seem kind of amateur. But as time went on, I realized that's what I wanted. I didn't want someone who showed all these boats and all these vacation homes and trading. And a lot of those people are making their money by people who pay $200 a month for their chat rooms and pay $7,000 for their, trading guru stuff and whatnot. Whereas I can get into your chat room for, a whole year is less than a month on their chat room. And you're not trying to, what they advertise as making lots of money, that's from people paying them. It's not from the stock market. Whereas you're real, you're not gouging people. So
I feel like Clay might be crying over there.
I'm trying to hold
muted.
back the tears right now. I am actually trying to be strong. I'm. That was a Dumb and Dumber reference for any of you that were wondering. But yeah, well, thank you very much. And yeah, I don't know if somebody called me a plumber at one point. I don't remember who that was, Chess, but I've just been called an amateur. But given the context, I'll take it. That was a massive compliment. So yeah,
that was my first reaction. I wouldn't necessarily call you an amateur now that I've actually been on your website and been a member for a while. But this was before I even knew you had a website, and I just saw your videos and whatnot.
Well, yeah, and I appreciate that, because the way I took it was you're an amateur because you're not like driving around in some Porsche over to your yacht to sail around the world with 20 scantily clad, beautiful women that are going to pour champagne on me for the remainder of the afternoon.
Where the camera's like, oh, hey, I didn't realize you're here. Let me just hop on this yacht real quick. This is my life, guys. Welcome.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now pay me $300 a month for my chat room and you can get... Anyways, so yeah, good instincts on your part. And clearly you kind of understand the whole game that is being played out there by many other people. So good on you, because Ches and I... unfortunately, we hear quite a bit from some of those people, and it's usually, I got ripped off, or I'm not happy with this or that. And but that's just, I guess, the way the cookie crumbles at times. So you mentioned I didn't know what I was doing, but at that time, you weren't sitting there at that time going, I don't know what I'm doing. Or, so what did you think you were doing at that point in time when you first got started?
Oh, I thought I was researching. I've the only money I've ever spent on any kind of training or any chat room is your chat room. I haven't spent any money on any training or anything like that. I guess I've spent money to the market for training or education, but sorry, repeat the question. I kind of got lost track there.
So when you first got started, you made the comment that, well, I didn't know what I was doing when I first got started. But going back to that point in time, I highly doubt that you're sitting there going, I have no idea what I'm doing. Let's put some money in the market. At that point in time, you had to have tricked yourself to thinking you knew what you were doing. So what did you think that you were doing at that point? Of course, now in hindsight, you know that you didn't know what you were doing. But at that exact moment in time, what were the voices in your head telling you that your actual strategy was?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I didn't have much of a strategy. I went on YouTube as my education, and I found that there's so much out there, different strategies. And so I'd play around with this strategy. I'd play around with that strategy. Do I use the RSI? Do I use the moving averages? Do I use the 20-day moving average? Do I use a 20-minute moving average? Do I use the 200-day moving average? There's so many different ways to trade. And I was lost for a long, long time. And one of the best things to do as a trader, in my opinion, is to learn to trade yourself. You do you.
And I'm guessing what you mean by that is that essentially, no two people trade the same. So if you find this guy on YouTube who says, hey, this is my MACD crossover with these crazy settings, and it works 99% of the time, and just like you said, it really is a case of finding, how you fit best. And from what I gathered about what you said about YouTube is that it's pretty much a big space and there's a ton of information. We're never ever going to discredit that, but it seems like it's kind of all over the place. It's not like put into a curriculum by any means. There's not a particular order you should be studying. There's just a lot of stuff. Is it safe to say you kind of felt a little overwhelmed?
Oh, absolutely. I was completely overwhelmed, and I was overwhelmed for the longest time. And
Now,
everybody needs to find their own trading style. And like I've heard it, I think I've heard it here before. It's one game played hundreds of different ways, thousands of different ways. You need to figure out your way to play it.
that is a really good way to put it. But something I didn't even touch on yet, though, is while you're kind of doing this research and trying to kind of figure stuff out with, Google and YouTube, are you trading live at this point?
Yeah, I started out with a demo account before I went live, but I didn't do a lot of trading on it. Before I started, my thought process was, well, if I make money, I want to make real money. I don't want to lose. I don't want to make fake money. And then when it comes to real money, I don't want to be at the point where, well, I've already made this much fake money and I'm going to start losing real money. I want to start making real money first.
Interesting. Very interesting thought process there. It totally makes sense, but man, those voices in our head, they are tricky little buggers because, yeah, screw this. If I want to make money, let's make it real money and not, this. So you did you demo trade at all, or really did you just like create a demo account and then never use it?
I created it and then I used it maybe like 5 or 6 times, but.
And I'm guessing you made money those 5 and 6 times.
Yeah, I didn't really pay too much attention, to be honest. I think I put money in, I forgot about it, and I went on there a week later, and hey, look, I made $500. It wasn't really anything crazy. I'm not against the demo accounts, but from my experience, a lot of the demo accounts, they're delayed. They're normally like delayed maybe a day or two. I don't know what exactly they are, but you can't trade the news like you do on a live account, on a demo account.
Well, I will comment, and Ches, I want you to chime in, but Thinkorswim, just off the top of my head, that's all real-time data, right? Assuming you asked to get, I don't know if you have to put money in your account or not, but that is all real-time in their demo account.
It used to be very, very easy just to get the live data. Now they're kind of pushing for people to at least have money in the account and then they activate it live. If you ask the right person, this is what we always generally say. If you ask 5 different people at Thinkorswim, you'll most likely get 5 different answers. But yeah, you can get live data, but at the same time, kind of like Mark said, if you don't have live data, then there's no way you can kind of trade the news if that's what you focus on.
Yeah, so that's a fair point in the sense of, I guess the moral of the story is make sure that if you're doing a demo that all the data is real time and not like 15 minutes delayed. And Thinkorswim, I mean, Ches, is it like $100, $50? Is there a requirement that you need to put in?
I think if you have any money in the account at all, because once you have money in the account, you need live data for your actual platform, and then you just ask them to put the live data on your demo platform. So I know people who've had $100 in there and they get live data, no problem. And then you can use their entire platform with real-time data on the paper thing. And like we suggest, and I'll put links in the show notes, how to paper trade correctly. You can actually change the balance of your paper account to reflect what you're actually going to be trading with, and that's the best way to kind of keep it real.
Yeah, and I do want to echo Mark's point about, yeah, he's not a huge fan of demos because, yeah, a demo is totally worthless if you don't do it the right way. So like Ches said, he'll link in the show notes how to properly, go about paper trading because, and the first step would definitely be, make sure that you have real-time data and none of this 15-minute delayed stuff. So, Mark, I'm just going to kind of be blunt. It sounds like your demo trading was just a total disaster. You took none of it serious, and you were just like, let's move on to the fun stuff, the real money. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, that's very fair. It was also, as far as the demo account goes, the psychology of a demo account is completely different than the psychology of a live account. So,
no, I fully agree. There is, as even if you trade a demo account as perfectly as possible in terms of the proper way to do it, yeah, there's still not going to be a perfect transition to real money. But that is why we always preach and preach and preach. When you go to real money, start super, super small. The smaller the better, because there's you got to ease your psychology into the fact that, oh, okay, yeah, there's actually real money on the line. But when it's small amounts, that makes that psychological burden a bit easier. But for you, did you start super small with real money, or were you just kind of tell us about your first kind of experiences jumping into the water with real money?
Well, I put a bunch of money in and I lost it all first.
Well, how much money did you put in? Are you willing to disclose that, or a range maybe?
I think at the beginning I put about 5,000 in my first account, And
Were you aware? Were you on the site at this point?
No,
Were you-
no.
Okay.
No. This is way before the site. I was
Okay.
on the site. And I loved margin. I loved to use all my margin as I could and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, my first.
Well, I mean, you put it in and it disappeared. So walk us through
Yeah.
like a typical trade. Not every single detail, but I mean, what was your kind of business model at this point? How did you find these trades?
Well, at the beginning, what I like to do is I like to buy breakouts, right? I'm like, oh, this thing's going to the moon, and it wouldn't break out to what I expected. It would fall down, and I would hold it a little bit. I mean, I never kept it. I never went to zero from a really bad trade, but I would hold a trade after it broke out, and then it would go down. It would continue to go down. It would continue to go down. And I'm just like, oh, I can't do this anymore. So I'd sell, and then as soon as I sell, it goes back up. Right. That's basically how I started. I did some like bottom picking. I always heard you want to buy low, sell high. So I did some just horrible stocks that were working its way down. And this was back. I only started in 2015. So this is like in the middle of all the volatility, when like the SPY was hitting, it was ranging from like 190 to 170 area. So I was just finding garbage and hoping, I was buying it in hopes that, it's got to turn around eventually. And
Emphasis on the word hope there. Totally
say,
a normal thing. And I really like, Clay, I want you to weigh in on this too. The fact that Mark would essentially hold until he would reach what we call the uncle point and tap out, and that's where it would generally bounce.
Yeah.
We it's totally natural human psychology to kind of have that happen, and it's actually a strategy we teach in the RVR trading course. But yeah, Clay, I want anything you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I mean, we've covered this many times before. I mean, it's just human psychology. Just when you don't think things get any worse, and you're like, all right, whatever. Usually that's probably the time to buy. But at that point, if you're already in, you're going to be one of those people selling. And the experienced people out there, the people that understand the context, understand charts, understand, the quote unquote story of what's going on from a psychology level. Yeah, they're just they're ready to feast upon the Marks of the world, the Clays of the world, the Cheses of the world when we all first got started. I mean, they're out there, and that's why the failure rate's 90%. I mean, people and this is by no means me trying to preach regulations or anything like that. I'm not trying to turn this political, but the invention of the online broker has led so many people to the slaughter because, oh wow, I can make money in the markets, and then they go out against these shark infested waters, and it's not even a fair fight. It's just not close, and that's just the way it is. So yeah. You're selling the bottom, or maybe you're buying the top. It's just basic psychology, and those that understand the psychology and understand how to profit from it, as ruthless as that sounds, that's just the way the market works. You're either gonna get worked by the system, or the system's gonna work for you, and that's up for you to determine, which path you want to go on. So you were totally throwing darts at the beginning.
Yeah.
When do you finally kind of get smacked in the face? Was it that first $5,000 you went through, or did you have to go through a couple $5,000 accounts and blowing those up before the proverbial hand across the face smacked you?
I never really got smacked. I had to basically smack my own face. I'm pretty lucky. Money isn't really a big issue for me. Like I'm pretty fortunate to have the kind of job that I do. And I'm not hard. Like if I blow up an account, I have more money available. That being said, and no one ever wants to refill their account, but I would have money available, and that's one thing that I think was a bit of a
catch-22.
Yeah, because my risk to reward, like I said, I would buy breakouts because I would risk a lot for this little reward. And because I didn't mind risking that much because I had the money to refill the account. So, I would buy breakouts, and I'd use all that risk, and then I would, of course, use all the risk and refill.
So now you've blown up your account. At this point, do you decide that, you need to kind of look into something or to get educated from somewhere or read some books or, or you're just going to keep kind of refilling and plugging away until you figure it out yourself?
Yeah, I basically just kind of refilled and kept going on my own. And there were a few different avenues that I saw and a few different strategies that I learned. One of the strategies that I spent a lot of time on was gaps. Gaps with catalysts, whether it be earnings or a bio that came out with good or bad results or whatever the catalyst was, basically just gaps on news. Because if a stock's gapping, there's going to be volume, and I'm someone who enjoys stats, so I tried to make a flow chart. Every gap that I could take note of, I would say, did it gap up? Did it gap down? Okay, did it open above the 20-minute SMA, the moving average? Did it open below the moving average? Did it cross the moving average in the first 5 minutes? Did it close? Where did it close in the first 5 minutes? After the first 5-minute candle, did it break up? Did it break down? And what was the trend? And what I found after I probably spent a couple months on this flow chart, and there were all these different scenarios. And what I found was it was completely random.
Random, yeah.
There was no.
There's no rhyme or reason.
No, I couldn't find any reason for. And I was even keeping track of what was the news. Was it an earnings miss? Was it an earnings, play? And it was just completely random. And I spent like 2 months on that chart.
Dare I say you were perhaps on the quest for some sort of holy grail? Because that's what that...
absolutely.
And the holy... I know Ches went on holy grail searches. I certainly did. My conclusion was, man, it's just randomness. Ches, was that your conclusion too? Randomness?
Yeah, I said, how long am I going to sit here and just try to build a perfect system, which not everything works for every system. There's not, all environments are different, and every day that follows is going to be different than the day before it. So yes, it's a hopeless thing, and eventually you just kind of have to come to the realization like we all did.
Yeah, and the perfect system is admitting that it's all randomness. When you could admit that it's all randomness, that is the first step in the right direction, because sure, it's random, but that doesn't mean that it's the casino, because there are ways we can leverage the randomness in our favor. And, I'm not going to, get all into that. I mean, we've talked about it before. That's what a lot of the courses talk about, but that's just the way it is. And that's why Ches and I were always talking about things tongue in cheek about, this indicator, and when it crosses that, anybody trying to sell you some sort of like perfect flawless system where all you got to do is let these robots trade for you, that's just not how it happens. That's not how it works. There is no perfect system, and the best and perfect system, like I said, just admit, hey, it's all random. And when you get that into your mind, then you can go and start to develop plans around the randomness and let the randomness work for you. Because in some situations, the randomness can really, really help you out and make a whole lot of money for you. Or the randomness can cost you a few bucks, assuming you're being a disciplined loser. So you realize, as an engineer, the flow chart, I mean, that just brought back great stuff there. You love stats, you're setting up flow charts. And, props to you for admitting that 2 months of your time. I mean, how much time were you working? Like, are we talking like hours per day or hours per week? Let's break this down a little bit more.
Yeah, well, like when I first started the flow chart, I already had, because I was tracking my trades, so I knew I already had the data. I just didn't have it in a flow chart. So when I first started, I would spend 6 or 7 hours out of the weekend working on this flow chart. So
I will give you credit. That's what it takes to succeed, though. You clearly have a passion for this stuff, because I know a whole lot of people that say, I want to be a trader. But on the weekends, I got football to watch, I got beer to drink, I got girls to chase, I got parties to go to, and then, there's Game of Thrones on too. But but I want to be a trader. So props to you. You were actually devoting a lot of time to trading. It was kind of a waste of time, but at least you were putting in the time. So I give you full props for that. And at least it wasn't too many weekends if it only lasted 2 months. But your conclusion was it's pure randomness. So where did you go from that point?
Yeah, and just to add on that, what you were saying, I think it's good for people to, not necessarily waste their time, but to spend a lot of time on something only to realize, look, this isn't working. Like, you need to try different things. You need to
Definitely.
you need to know what works and what doesn't work. And in order to know that, you need to try something, and now this doesn't work, and try something next, and this doesn't work. And the longer you can hang in there, the longer the better chance you have on finding something that, hey, this works, this could work.
I agree with the caveat of, you admitted you have a good job, and I did the same thing when I got started, and I also had a unique situation with a business. I'd started selling books. So quote unquote, hanging in there and just figuring out, see if that works. Oh, that doesn't work. Well, let's see if that works. That does work. But if you don't have the means to keep on, like you said, put money into the account, eventually the well goes dry. So I do agree, but there is a little context that, goes into that. Ches, I know you had a question.
Well, I was just going to say, like you said, eventually there's a point where you need to kind of shift and pivot your kind of efforts. But what it shows more than anything is, like Clay was mentioning before, you have a passion for this. It's something that, you didn't just try for, an hour and you're like, forget the market, I'm done. I'm going to go, become a professional snowboarder or something. Obviously you want to do this, but like you said, yeah, those efforts, eventually you got to realize where you need to kind of move them, but you're completely right.
Yeah, I mean, I remember being 7 or 8 years old, and I'm not sure how old you guys are, but when I was 7 or 8, Pokemon cards were really big, and I guess that was my first introduction to quote unquote trading. I never bought any Pokemon cards. I was given a couple for free, and I think I ended up, after a couple of years, by the time I was like 10 or 11, I ended up with a couple hundred cards just from trading. I'll give you this, I'll give you it for that, I'll give you this for that. So that was kind of, I guess, what you could say my introduction into trading.
Cool. So yeah, Mark, why don't you tell us that when I asked the original question? That
I'm
would have been
sorry.
perfect. Yeah, it's
I'm
fine.
sorry.
But no, that's absolutely it. And it's funny how you start young and little things like that really stick with you, and you learn about passions and things. So you are, you've figured out, hey, you know what? This is totally random. And I do agree. It's good to test things out. But after you've determined that it is random, I mean, where do you go from there? I mean, do you decide you got to totally find a new strategy, or what's your next step?
Yeah, well, you know what? One thing that really helped me out, and I don't know if I would recommend this to anybody, but after months and months, up in Canada, we have what's called a TFSA, a tax-free savings account. And it's basically it's an account that you can put money into, and you can make profit, and you don't have to pay tax on it. And I opened up one of those, and I still have it, and that's what I have is like my long-term trading account. And I let my margin account, I let it go to zero, and I decided not to refill it. And I used some of my margin from the tax-free savings account, and I use that to trade with. And one thing that really helped me with was there's a number that I like, and that number is zero. If I have $2,000, for whatever reason, I like to lose it all and go down to zero. If I go past that and I use my margin, I'm at negative 2,000. For whatever reason, that number zero attracts me. And I think part of the reason why that happened to me was because after I decided now I have money to refill that account if I want to, but I decided not to. I'm like, you know what? I have no money. I'm going to make my options very limited. And when I decided to limit my options, that's when I found really good trades. I was able to take a step back and wait for the trade for me.
So you pretty much got stingy with your own money and are like, listen, Mark, yeah, the money is there, but there's no more money coming into the account. And that just helped trigger, you appreciated what money you had a lot more. You showed it a lot more respect. Is that a fair summation there?
Yeah, exactly. When I have $2,000 in my account, that means I have $2,000 I can lose. Yeah, and that's just how my psychology worked. When I have negative $2,000 in that account, and that's just negative 2,000. That's what's showing on the screen, right? Obviously, I have money available, but for whatever reason, when I see that negative $2,000, I can't lose money. So, like, I can't afford to lose money. So that really made me pick and choose the trades that I wanted to trade.
And as far as I'm concerned, that summarizes us as traders. As traders, we need to do anything and everything to pull Jedi mind tricks on ourselves because trading is not a conventional way of thinking. And yeah, Mark, thank you for sharing that because that's it's weird, but I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm just saying it just goes back to kind of this overall theme here of personal preference. Mark found a little Jedi mind trick to play on himself, and it seems to be working. So at what point did you stumble across well, you said you saw me on YouTube, but when did you actually decide to, join the Inner Circle, the private trading group?
Yeah, like I said, I've only been on for a few months. Out of all the videos that I saw on YouTube and everything, it said it'd be good to just get connected with the group and to chat with. And I don't even chat a whole lot in there. It's just good to know what's going on in the market and who's playing what and why. I mean, you should never follow anyone's alerts, and for the most part, I ignore any alerts that are given in the chat room just because you need to do you. One of the worst mistakes you can make is following someone else's advice. But I kind of lost my train of thought there. Going back to your original question, what brought me to onto the?
Well, and to be fair, you already mentioned that earlier. You came across some videos on YouTube, and then remember that's when you called me an amateur, Mark. You jerk. But
well, that's when I said I viewed you more of as that.
I'm just kidding. So, but how do you use the chat room then? Because I'm not saying you don't use it wrong, but you pretty much ignore the alerts. But then you say you just want to know what's going on and stuff like that. So from just kind of more of a strategic standpoint, because I think a lot of people are under the impression like, well, I'm not going to join a chat room because if I join a chat room, then like I have to chat and talk. But yeah, to echo what you said, you really don't talk. You'll say good morning in the morning, and then after that, maybe throw out a couple of alerts. But besides that, you're not really ever quote unquote chatting. So how do you use, what do you use the chat room for? Go into a little bit more detail there, which I think was going to clear out a lot of common misconceptions about, well, why would I ever join a chat room? I don't plan on chatting. I don't want to chat with anybody.
But yeah, exactly. Like you said, the first thing I do when I get up in the morning is and it's not even every morning, but most mornings I go on to the chat and I just say good morning in the main chat. And there's a lot of chatter. And the thing with me is in the morning, I'm doing a lot of prep work. Like I do a lot of computer work for work. So I don't have a lot of time between getting ready for work, looking at what's going on in the market to actually chat. If I was trading full time, I would definitely partake more. But my times in the morning are spent, getting ready for work or eating breakfast. I'm on the West Coast, so I'm up at 5:30, 6 o'clock when I say good morning. So I got to get ready for work. I got to eat breakfast, and I got to see what's going on in the market, amongst other things. And if there's nothing going on, I'll check to see who's saying what in the actual room for the ticker number or the tickers.
The trading pit, you're saying?
Yeah, for the pit. But I mean, like, you should never see what they're saying and then just trade off of that. You need to see what they're saying, why they're saying that, and then do your own search. Why do I want to get in? I don't like if I see someone alerting something, hey, this is that. I don't care what this is doing. I want to care why I want to get in. I don't care why.
Does it fit your plan, right?
Exactly.
Now, what you kind of brought something up that I want to kind of circle back to. You said you wake up and you kind of check where the market's at. What specifically do you have on your charts? What do your charts look like that help you determine the market's moving, the market's not moving? Is it indicators, moving averages?
Yeah, I mean, you always want to know where the sectors are and where the SPY is. That's kind of like, I'll just glimpse. It's not really, is the SPY gapping up? Is it gapping down? Is it a sector that you might trade? Is it gapping up, gapping down? But as far as my charts go, I used to have so many moving averages and and I used to have so many indicators, and what I realized is less is more. So I got rid of all my moving averages because everybody likes to say, look at this, it's it's going to bounce off of the 20-day, it's going to bounce off the 200-day, it's going to bounce off of the 5-minute, the 5-minute 20 moving average or the 5-minute 50 moving average, but if you really look at all the charts, they bounce off. It's a moving average. The average is going to follow the price. So obviously it's going to bounce off of some average out there. And it's also going to go through an average and bounce right back. So I've learned to actually, the averages are good to, if you're in a trade, it's good to maintain a trade, but I never really use averages to get into a trade. So I've taken basically everything out except for the MACD and the RSI. VWAP's a different story. I might have that VWAP in, but basically all I like to use is the RSI and the MACD.
And this just going again, and none of this is pre-planned, but personal preference. He uses the MACD, RSI, no moving averages. If you were to look at my chart, yeah, I guess the MACD and RSI are there for like decoration or something, but I can't remember the last time I actually looked down at one of those. And I love my moving averages. Am I saying that Mark is wrong? Absolutely not. Am I wrong? I hope not. I don't think so either. But it's all personal preference. You just got to use what you feel most comfortable with.
Yeah, and that being said, it's not even like I use them to enter a trade. I just use them to see what I'm like what I like to look for. What I love is divergence. So that's why I have them up there. I want to see divergence in the RSI and the MACD compared to the price. Moving averages are great, but support and resistance and trend lines are way, way, way more important to me. Like support and resistance is my number one trading tool.
We can definitely, I don't know. I might argue candlestick, but it's all personal preference.
Yeah,
Who really cares?
You're right.
This is your party, baby. This is your world. We're just living in it right now. So
no, I would agree to that too as well. I mean, like, I'm just speaking in the mornings and
right.
When I'm looking before anything's really going on.
Yeah, exactly. Finding those supply and demand areas. Yeah, we're definitely on the same page there. You kind of stole this question away from me a little bit. I was going to ask, what are your favorite strategies? So, I mean, outside of looking for those divergences, do you like to play pullbacks? Do you like to play, breakouts? What's your ideal strategy? What are you looking to kind of, what setups really kind of float your boat?
Yeah, like you said, candlesticks, that just kind of went over my head. But yeah, candlesticks are definitely up there as well as being very important, just like support and resistance. But what I'm looking for is divergence on the daily RSI and the MACD compared to like price action. And then once I can find those, I kind of have like a list of, maybe 50 to 60 stocks. And then if there's any, I don't look at all of them, but I have on my platform any unusual volume. It'll give me an alert like, hey, there's unusual volume on this stock. And then I'll go to that stock. And then I'll probably look for an entry on there. And I will not buy breakouts anymore. I only buy pullbacks. If something breaks out and just goes, I'll let it go. I will only buy a pullback. Like there was one ticker, RGSE, like real good solar something or other. A couple of weeks back, I was trading around $3, and I knew it was the day after the first debate. And I knew it had potential to bounce and go pretty high. It was trading around $3, and it was pulling back in the morning for about 10 minutes. And I had an order out, and it never touched my order. It started about $3, and it went down to like maybe $2.65. And I think I maybe had an order around $2.50. And it hit around $2.70 and reversed. And I was looking to get in. It went back to touch high of day. And I had an order just below high of day, and it never got filled. And the thing just took off from $3 to $8 that day. And I missed out on it because I never got a fill. But I was okay with that because I did not chase it. There are so many times where so many other stocks where I chased and it never did that. And it came back down to $2, so.
And the way the voices work is the voice. Sorry, Ches. But way the voices in your head are going to work is they're always going to be, hey, remember RGSC? You better chase. They're never going to tell you about the 18 other million times where it never worked. They're always just going to try to bring your attention back to RGSC and say, yeah, that's why you should chase right now. So yeah, good on you. You didn't chase. Sure, it didn't work out this time, but as you already alluded to, and well done on your part, at least you realize that, well, what about those other million times where it actually didn't work out? So way to kick those voices to the curb. Well done. And I kind of maybe stole one of your answers here about what Ches is going to be asking you.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to kind of chime in too that, as it's not like you're new to the market by any means. You've had money in the market. You've had accounts blow up. You've had to kind of really take a hard look at yourself and your trading. And, as people generally mature, I was the same exact way as you in that I would buy every breakout. And then if I missed one, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm missing out. And then you end up buying the top. And I'm just like you in the sense of I only really look to buy pullbacks if I think something's, trending up or down. But honestly, that's it's just a really what I call kind of your market maturity. And a lot of it just takes time and it takes practice and it takes, education. But, if you had to kind of pick and choose your strengths and your weaknesses in your trading right now, what would you say are some for each of those?
Like I said at the beginning, I was into motorcycles. Like I'm an adrenaline junkie. I raced motorcycles for a few years back in like 2010, 2011, 2012. Before I raced, I had just gotten my motorcycle license and I wanted to get a bike. And so I bought a bike. I just found the first nice bike I could get, and I bought it. But as time went on, I got into motorcycle racing. I sold all my street bikes and I only had a race bike. And there's one story where I can't race every weekend. There's just not that. It's just not available that much. So I was always looking to buy a bike during the off season. And at this time, my mentality changed. I don't really care too much about street bikes. I just want something for my spare time. So I was out looking for bikes, and I remember I came across this one bike, and it was advertised for $3,900, and the bike was probably worth about $36,000. And I offered $3,000. I offered him $3,000. Because I had my race bike. I didn't really need a street bike. But hey, listen, if I can get a good deal on it, I'll take it. So I offered him $3,000, and he came back with maybe 38. Oh, you know what? You can do 38. And I moved up to 3,100, and I said, listen, man, I'm just not going to pay $3,100, more than $3,100 for this bike. This was in October, which is when people are looking to sell bikes because no one really rides in the winter. So I knew that there wasn't much of a market there for sellers to sell to. So I said, hey man, listen, I'll give you $3,100. And the bike, was worth probably $3,600. But I just stood my ground, and I was okay. I was willing to walk away and not pick that up. And he said, you know what? You can have it for $3,100. And I took it and I rode it for a few months, and I ended up selling it the next year for $3,700. When I'm trading now, I always need to remind myself of that story, and that's how I need to trade. I need to be willing to walk away, and it's okay if I don't get a fill. Don't give in. Let them come to you. Let the market come to you.
There's always going to be other motorcycle deals out there in the market. There's a ton of motorcycles floating around the market in terms of ticker symbols. So yeah, absolutely. If it doesn't work out, move on to the next one. And I was thinking about that. The reason the motorcycle market's probably so strong for buyers right before winter is because everybody's looking to go out there and get dog sleds. Isn't that how that works? As motorcycle market goes down because dog sled market goes up, is that how that works?
Yeah, sure. Out in Vancouver, to be honest, I'm up in Canada, but in Vancouver we get snow 2 days out of the year.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, in Vancouver
it's pretty temperate there. Yeah, it's not what you think of Canada.
Well, screw that. No, I like my Canadian stereotype. So as far as I'm concerned, Mark is shoveling snow right now as he does this podcast. So
yeah, you go to Winnipeg and it's 45, or I guess you guys are in Fahrenheit. So you go to Winnipeg in the summertime and it's 105 degrees, and then you go in there in the winter and it's negative 45. Whereas in Vancouver, it hovers around between 40 and 90 all year, basically.
whatever. You're shoveling stone right now. That's
I'm
that's
sorry.
my story, and I'm sticking to it. So looking here at the clock, we've been talking for a while, so we got to start to wrap things up. But Ches has a time machine, which I'm sure you're well aware of, given you mentioned that you've listened to past podcasts. And if he were to lend you that time machine, ship it up to Vancouver, and you could go back to the start, what would be the one bit of advice that you'd give yourself?
I told myself to slow down. I was very anxious when I started. I always wanted to be in a trade. One of the best things you can do as a trader is not to be in a trade. So I would tell myself to slow down.
Very sound advice, and advice that most people should definitely heed, especially if they're new to the market. But honestly, Mark, it's been an awesome time talking to you this evening. I just want to thank you again. But the most important question Clay wants to ask you is, what is your favorite movie?
Yeah, and I was thinking about this. I've whenever I'm asked that, it's not even my favorite movie, but for whatever reason, the movie that comes to mind is The Truman Show. I wouldn't even say it's my favorite movie, but it just, for whatever reason, it's the first one that pops up.
I can kind of see that, because that's one of those movies where if it's like on TV, I'm not going to say that I stop and watch the whole thing, but I'll just usually stop and like watch it for a little bit. I don't know what it is about The Truman Show, but so I can kind of see where you're coming from in a sense on that one. What about food? What do you like to eat up there in the great country of Canada?
As far as food, I don't know. Just a good steak and potatoes. I really like a good steak.
Keeping it simple, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
What do you do for fun or hobbies besides motorcycle riding? I'm not sure if you're still into that at all now, but what do you kind of do outside of your job and just your interest in the market?
Yeah, I don't do a lot of motorcycle racing anymore. But I grew up playing baseball. I don't really play a lot of baseball anymore, but I'm in like these softball leagues just for fun and whatnot. But one of my biggest things right now is probably mountain biking. Being in Vancouver, there's a lot of mountains around here, so there's a lot of opportunity for mountain biking and whatnot, and some rock climbing as well. But those are probably my two things that I do.
Yeah, that's awesome. That stuff will keep you in shape too. So always get it out there. Good to get out there and be active. Final question here. You got 3 words, Mark, and these 3 words need to describe what you would associate with a successful trader. What do you got?
I'll give you 3 words, and I'll give you another 3 words. I've got patience.
He's Canadian, so he can break the rules, I guess. He can go up to 6 words. That's fine.
No, I got 3 words here. It's patience, discipline, and patience. And then my other 3 words are less is more.
Oh, I like that. You can break the rules all day long with stuff like that. So, yeah, well said. And for you listeners out there, really only 6 words, but, very powerful 6 words indeed. Well, Mark, again, public thank you for just being totally cool and accepting to come hang out with Ches and I, and not, like I said, not making it a drama fest like some people do, cough, cough. So I appreciate that, and we will definitely be seeing you in the chat room.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
For you listeners out there, a few small things before we part ways. If you're listening to this on claytrader.com, click that share button, leave us a comment. We do read them. We will respond. If you're listening on YouTube, again, leave us a comment. Click the like button and check out the channel as a whole. A lot of other different things on the channel besides the podcast. And hopefully you ultimately decide to subscribe to the channel. And then finally, if you're listening on iTunes or any of the other podcast players, please subscribe. And particularly on iTunes, if you could leave us a rating, that would be very helpful. And it really helps to kind of get our name out there and just lets Ches and I know that you are finding these worthwhile. So thank you again to Mark. Thank you again to all you listeners. We will see you back for the next episode.
This has been the Stock Trading Reality Podcast. Thanks for taking the time to hang out. To learn more about Clay and the Clay Trader community, including the trading team, premium training, and more, visit claytrader.com.